Right, just be a couple of minutes, maybe not even that long. Yes, here we are ready to speak with you again. We look forward to your questions and to see how we may guide your path, both collectively and individually. Please ask your questions when you're ready.
Hello, thank you for joining us. The first question, this ascension we are going through, what can we do to help us access our highest timeline, and how do we know that we have accessed it?
As a human, you will rarely know when you have accessed it. It is very much within your nature to question every single moment of your journey and path of your day, of your thoughts and your feelings. Although the more that you change your frequency and align with higher vibrations, the less questioning you are and more able to step into a state of flow where you allow different opportunities to present themselves to you rather than specifically going and looking for certain circumstances that you think will better your personal situation. And so once you are in with this state of flow, then you tend to experience those things and you tend to naturally fall into the experiences that feel better to you, that feel more in alignment with joy and happiness and love and abundance. The process of ascension will vary depending on each human. You all have different ways of accessing those higher frequencies and planes of dimension, those different possibilities of reality. But essentially, the core part of it is that your vibration and what you observe greatly influences the experiences that you're going to have. As a human, you perceive things in a very linear fashion. Therefore, you expect one outcome to follow another. But from our perspective, which is more what you would understand as a quantum perspective, the experiences are happening simultaneously. Therefore, your highest timeline is always accessible to you, and all you need to do is jump into it. Of course, we realize that the expression all you need to do, it oversimplifies the process for you as humans, because you have that ego which you have to learn to not get rid of, because it is here for your human experience, to enhance your human experience, and you will get great pleasure from the positive aspects that the ego can provide. But learn to not let it rule the roost when it is coming from a place of fear, which it often is. You've become very conditioned to listen to the aspects of your ego which run from fear rather than the aspects of your ego which run from joy and excitement. Sometimes it is high vibration that allows you to feel very positive about something, and sometimes it is the ego, because you are experiencing maybe a material upgrade or something that you have been hoping for. But the joy that that brings will still continue to raise the vibration and move you into higher timelines and higher frequencies. So the journey of learning how to move into higher timelines really will vary depending on the experiences that you have had in your past, the experiences of your other incarnations, and how easily you are able to reprogram yourself away from those experiences that may have been negative and release them from your energy and release that density. And for some of you, this is much more easy than it is for others. Quite often you need to have lost a lot as a human and moved through that and known that you have been okay and able to survive in order to believe that that is possible for the future. But we wish for you as a collective to no longer need to go through that stress and that trauma in order to realize that it is possible to move into higher states. So by learning to be very conscious of the thoughts that you have about yourself and about other people, because thoughts that are negative about others, we know that you will have them. That is perfectly normal. But if you allow them to become your predominant modality of thinking, then you will also be attracting that vibration to you. So the way that you are able to change your vibration is by changing what you engage with, whether it is negative or positive. Many of you who are very aware of the illusory nature of some of the things that you're presented with in your human experience feel very dissatisfied and angry sometimes, or hurt, or even afraid of what you know may be going on behind closed doors, although not so much. Much of it is now out in the open, because as humans you do not have the perspective that you actually have any control over these outcomes, which you actually do. So for example, you receive much predictive programming in your human experience. So those of you who engage in entertainment which is very fear-based, even if it is for enjoyment, you are actually observing the possibility of a certain outcome, and because you're observing it, you're giving it energy and therefore more likely to create it. So therefore, when you see these films that are produced, for example, where there is much fear and panic and millions of people are watching these films, it's not that you'll necessarily create the exact circumstances of the film, but they will replicate the frequency that is created in the moment where that viewing is possible. So for example, very dystopian type programs will bring into your consciousness the possibility of that reality, whereas if you did not have the observation of that possibility of reality before, then you would have been less likely to collectively create it. So the more that you can be aware as humans as to what you pay your attention to, whether it is for yourself and your self-talk, or what you pay your attention to in terms of your entertainment, or even where you get your news from and what news you put the most focus on, and whether you allow it to change your mood, will greatly determine what you then go on to experience. And you are going through a time at the moment where many of you are starting to learn the significance of your own thoughts, are starting to understand that you do have some control over your own reality. We hesitated to say some then, because actually you have considerably more control than just some, but for now we know that that is as much as you're likely to assimilate until the majority of you have moved predominantly into the fifth dimension or higher. So as a collective you do have considerable power, but it comes from you being able to make those individual changes in your own pattern, in your own ways of processing, in the frequency that you inhabit most of the time.
Thank you. Is there any other questions at the moment?
Coming back to the idea of, I guess, attracting more fear-based things with signs and synchronicities, can you attract a sign from fear and a sign from love? Because I used to think that it was like a sign was always true, and recently I feel like I've been getting like more than one sign for a situation, or flip signs or backward signs. I feel like I'm being tested for my own internal guidance instead of external. And like, I guess what I'm asking is like, when we receive these signs and synchronicities, is it just us creating it, or is it actually guidance from something that's maybe watching out for us, if that makes sense?
There are different aspects to this question, because you will notice certain things that may seem like signs that feel in very high vibration to you. The signs that feel high vibration and good, we would advise are genuine guidance. They are an observation that you are making, and because you make the observation and see it as a positive thing, it will pull you towards that frequency. But then you get what you believe to be a false reading, because, for example, say you were seeing the number pattern 888 and you read into that and think, brilliant, that means I'm going to come into a ton of money because it symbolizes abundance and infinity, and resources. But then the money doesn't come, which causes you to question whether the sign was genuine or whether you have been given a false reading. The sign is genuine, but your own human experience, and quite often the layers of the ego, will alter the trajectory. So essentially, if you see the signs and synchronicities, they're a form of prediction, but prediction is always subject to the energy remaining on that trajectory. And if the energy changes because your ego comes in and questions it, then that will often then alter the trajectory, or maybe postpone it is a better word. So quite often you'll be shown things, everything comes into your energy field as a human before it comes into your physical body, and sometimes you will experience it in the physical world, not just the body, the material experiences that you have as well, very quickly, and at other times it may be months or even years before you actually have the experience come in. And it really depends on how many roadblocks you put in for yourself on the journey to the alignment of that energy. So every moment that you have fear-based emotions, and this we'll use wealth as the example for this, because it is something that is significant to many of you and still rules a lot of your human experience. So many of you will see signs that you're going to come into abundance, and then the mind or the ego, that layer of your human experience, will start immediately guessing the ways in which that might happen. Is it that person? Is it that connection? Is it that network? And therefore it already starts to limit itself, because you don't mean to do it, but because you are finding observation in various different circumstances, you are still actually almost eliminating the other possibilities that might come to you. So by remaining completely open, and again, we realize this is not always easy, or in the moments where you catch yourself coming into egoic thought and trying to guess what the forthcoming situation might be that will bring you into that state of abundance, if you can catch yourself out and just stop, take a breath, come into your heart space, and try not to overthink it, and just be grateful for the sign and for the fact that that outcome is in your energy and will eventually come to you, that will help you move into that. If you are asking us as to whether you are being manipulated by different energies or entities, then that's a slightly different thing, and we think it unlikely. Energies and entities are able to attach, particularly to those that are in low vibration. Entities from high vibrational frequency won't try and attach to you, they have no need to. So energies from low vibrational frequency essentially attach to the human energy field because it's in a higher vibration. So everything gravitates towards something that is in a higher vibration. And so if your energy has dipped, you may be, or if your vibration has dipped, you may be more susceptible to entities coming to you, but it is likely that they will not remain with you for very long if they have even been able to catch on, unless you are particularly anxious, fearful, or if you are keeping your vibration low through different substances. There are many substances within your human experience that can lower that vibration, and that does leave you more open to different entity attachment. But most of the time, if you've just had a temporary dip, and maybe you've had a couple of situations that have made you feel like you're on a certain path and then they haven't come to fruition when you'd expected them to quickly, it could be because you have limited yourself in possibility, or it could be that there has been some temporary lowering of your vibration. But once you are able to bring yourself back into heart-spaced trust or flow with the universe rather than the egoic questioning, you will lift your vibration naturally, and that will shake those entities and stop their influence from persisting.
Thank you.
So are we saying that entities can only attach to a vibration that's higher than them? So any entity that would attach would be of a lower vibration than what we carry?
Essentially, yes, but what we want to stress to you here is that if the vibration of a being is very, very high, then they are not a resonant match for beings in a lower vibration, or if they are, it is only a very minor change in vibration. So, for example, if you're a human who carries a very high vibration, then you will often find that other humans are attracted to you. not necessarily physically, although often it feels physical to them. That people want to talk to you. You feel open. You have an open energy, as you might term it. And their vibration might just be fractionally lower. So, but then sometimes if you have that high vibration, you may need to go and release some of the energy at the end of the day, because actually you have absorbed some slightly lower vibrational energy. This is perfectly normal, and this occurs with not just within the human dimension, but within different layers of frequency, energy, entities, different incarnated beings. Low vibrational entities, when we're talking about what you might term as demonic or as very malevolent spirits, you have to have a really quite a low vibration, be very much in states of fear in order for that to happen. So for example, at times where there is mass panic on your planet, and I'm sure some of you can think of recent times where that has occurred, there will be more entity attachment occurring, and that creates the person who is suffering the attachment to be in an even more exacerbated state of fear. So then it becomes harder to shake off, and then the human energy can start to create what is termed as an egregore. So it is an energy within itself, and that then is given further generation by the energy that is fed by humans. So when you are going through times of mass stress or panic on your planet, there are often huge entities created from the human energy. But you are also going through a time where there is very much happening on your planet through the planetary movements, through the cosmos, the frequency of Earth itself, and the experiences, the cyclical nature of the experiences that humans have, where many of you are able to raise your vibration significantly enough that negative energies aren't able to affect you anymore. And high vibrational frequency has a much larger resonance than low vibrational frequency. So therefore, the lower vibrations, the lower energies and entities are less able to attach to even those that do have a slightly lower vibration, because their vibration is being lifted by those of you that have a higher vibration, which is why it is the most collectively serving thing as well as self-serving thing you can do to raise your own frequency first, because you actually then make it easier for everyone else to raise theirs. If you try and reach people when you are in a state of low vibration or even low health, which causes your vibration to dip, then that is the time that you need to take the most care of yourself and not be attempting to help others, because actually you could cause them to have their vibration dip despite your intentions being pure in wishing to help the opposite.
Any more questions at the moment?
Could you say something about the energy, the sacred sites that are in west of Cornwall, and the raising of the vibration that's going on around there right at this particular moment?
So these sacred sites are often believed by humans to be very, very fixed in their position in terms of where the energy lines carry. But there is some deviation in that. It can be by a couple of miles. And that depends on the planet and the frequency of the planet, the time of year sometimes, the collective human consciousness as well. There are various aspects. So quite often when crop circles appeared, more so in the past, then it would alter the frequency lines ever so slightly of the sites such as Stonehenge and Avebury that have the energy lines running through them. So, and there are times of the year where specific energy sites become stronger in vibration, or where they shift slightly, and it is often when they're shifting that humans are attracted to work on them. You don't necessarily realize this consciously, but you're attracted to go to those sites in order to move them back into their position, because humans like consistency and they like to know that energy is in a certain place, even though they often don't realize that they do. And they also need to be cleansed and cleared. And if a site is particularly active in a certain time, it could be because the energy lines of that place are either collecting a higher frequency because of the resonance of Earth in itself, or because they are slightly on the move. Sometimes it is because they've collected a lot of negative energy and are literally asking humans to come and clear them. And that is the case with this site at the moment. And because attention gets paid to these places, and again, this is not necessarily meaning that everybody flocks to that area. In fact, quite often when you get a flocking of people to a specific energy site, it lowers the frequency, but it becomes something that is almost in the consciousness of people, and they unknowingly will quite often focus their energy onto a specific area. So we have talked about this previously, and we're just going to revisit it for a moment to explain a little further. So the crop circles, particularly the ones that came earlier in the era that you would see as about 30 years ago, some maybe 20 years ago, carried a slightly different vibration to the ones that appear now. And that's because the ones that occurred in the past, and they have gone back for hundreds of years, but in your memory, we're talking about the ones 20 or 30 years ago, were predominantly created by the consciousness of different high frequency beings from the cosmos, from different ETs. Then as that energy created a resonance within your planet, many humans were affected by that, and so much of the crop circles that you appear now, those that are genuine, have been created by human consciousness. They've been created by a kind of plasma-like energy that moves the corn in such a way, much as it had come from the ET energy before. So the ET energy came and made a blueprint, and then human consciousness started to raise in frequency significantly around that time, which allowed many of you to very unconsciously actually start to, so it's a mass energy. So it's a bit like the idea of creating these negative entities, except they take a different form and often make much more pure and beautiful patterns when they're coming from higher states of consciousness. So you are part of the creation of these patterns, and you are also part of the creation or the movement and the different interference that happens to various energy lines.
What is the purpose of crop circles?
So the initial imprint of them was to bring this energy to you, so that you would, to humans, so that you would then have more humans starting to catch on. So we have known for a long time that human consciousness was going to rise at a certain point, but we have been aware that there was a possibility of some humans getting left behind in terms of this split that many of you are starting to perceive between dimensions. So many of the interactions that you have had, including if you go way, way back to the ancient civilizations and some of the structures that were created there with the help of beings from other parts of the cosmos, was in order to prevent too many humans from suffering if they remained in a different frequency and different dimension. So the crop circles started to come in, knowing that you were, like preemptively, knowing that you were going to be moving into this time to help with the ascension journey and transfer that energy to humans, which is why humans are now producing crop circles unknowingly through their higher states of frequency. So it was essentially a trigger point for that to happen.
Amazing, thank you.
Can we be from many different planets?
You are from many different planets. You're incarnated into several is a word that underplays it far too much. Thousands, sometimes. Some of you not so much. There are humans incarnating now that have maybe only 2 or 3 incarnations, which is very exciting. But for most of you, as you incarnate, you go through multiple layers of dimensions and frequencies and planets. So you will have counterparts in all different parts of the universe. And this is why we are able to connect with Jessica. There is an aspect of Jessica's energy that resides within myself. And essentially that is what you see as your soul team. But for many of you, you connect predominantly with the previously human incarnated, and we say previously because we know that that's how you understand past lives, although the experiences are actually all happening in the exact moment, in the now moment. So you often connect with the human parts of the other incarnations because they, until you move into higher vibration, they're the ones that you are in the closest resonance with. So you can receive the guidance from them and you can receive their wisdom. But it is like receiving wisdom from a being that has passed over. If you have talked to your grandma on the other side, she is still going to present you with similar guidance to what she would while she was still alive. There may be a slightly transcended state there, so it may be a slightly broader perspective, but it is still within the range of human vibration. And so when you learn to connect with the aspects of your soul team that are in higher frequencies, they are able to bring through a different perspective. And this does not mean that we have an all-knowing perspective. We are still beings having an experience, but our perspective will give a view to you that is closer to source energy, and it will bring through a higher vibration when you make that connection as well. So sometimes you just need to shift your frequency a little and move into slightly higher states of vibration in order to make those connections with those beings. There'll be many of you who are able to dip in and out of making those connections. So for example, children who dream of ET beings or have some kind of understanding of another mummy, another part of their family that isn't from this planet. And many of them forget it as they get older, but there is still on the level of the unconscious, a dipping in and out of this energy, and quite often those beings will become awakened more quickly. But for many of you, it is a longer journey in terms of moving from the place where you're guided by human spirits or other human incarnations at different points in time into much higher frequency interpretations.
So would you say that we were all from the same place?
Yes, when you go to the beginning of it. So this becomes what you term or understand as the nature of God or the nature of source. It is an energy that is highly, highly conscious and chooses to send itself out through different frequencies and planes in order to have experiences. Because from the experiences that are in high vibration, it is able to expand itself. And the experiences of low vibration do cause some contraction, but when you get down to the human level, to the dimensions that you reside within, the contractions are what then cause the expansions. So as a human, you experience your emotions, you experience through polarity. You're not in one constant fixed state. And it is therefore the moments where you feel that you have overcome darkness that you feel the most connected to the light. And that is one of the interesting parts of the human experience, and why there are many energies choosing to take a human physical form, because there is much more range in what is able to be experienced. And therefore, although the contractions are large, the expansive moments are greater than when you are just solidly in one vibration the whole time. So by having experiences in an incarnate form, and that does not necessarily mean a physical form, I'm in an incarnate form and I can choose physicality and choose not to have it. But by being in an incarnate form, you are constantly having experience that causes the expansion of the universe. And because you are the universe, because you are one part of that exact same energy having multiple experiences, you wish to and are able to create expansion, which is why when you feel that you have tapped into God or source, you feel so expanded. You're just remembering the energy that you come from.
Thank you. Question?
I think so. So, the soul contract, you come down to Earth, you choose the life you want to live.
imagine you chose to live poverty, but then this whole new thing of manifesting and changing it, how does that conflict of the life you chose to come and live?
How do you mean?
If you chose to, come into a body, to be born, to live poverty, to experience that life, but then there's now that option that you can change everything by manifesting and bringing in new energies. You can completely change the life that you didn't choose.
Yes, so essentially you are moving. So you will have had often multiple incarnations of the same being, of the same person in different frequencies. And you can jump into a vibrational version that is more benevolent to you. But often the energy is created to begin with in the lower vibrational experiences, because as you learn to bring in different energies to manifest better circumstances, it creates like a boom or a flare. And many of you are familiar with the concept of solar flares now. So imagine that a huge spark of light is triggered as you have the experience of moving into higher timelines, which is why many incarnations in poverty, many incarnations in unfortunate circumstances occur, because there is so much light then created when those experiences are overcome. And although there are more who have incarnated into states of poverty or misfortune, it only takes a relatively small amount of those who have overcome those circumstances to set a frequency into a much higher resonance, which then allows more of those who have experienced that negative side of your polarized experience to be able to also make the jump. So you will start to see in a short few years, possibly less than 5, huge changes in the balance. You will perceive it as huge changes in the balance of wealth, where there becomes more opportunities for those who haven't previously experienced it. And that's because it's only been a small group of people who have naturally been able to tune themselves into that frequency. They have created that resonance, and therefore others are starting to learn to jump into it. So this is why it suddenly appears to you as humans that there is now this huge platform about manifesting. Ideas catch on, there is a resonance, but it is not just because you have heard the transfer of an idea, it is because the frequency has changed through a few people having that resonance and has started to shift you all into higher timelines.
Any other questions?
Why do entities speak through channels rather than to us directly?
Simply because you'll be very scared. If we suddenly appeared, we know that at the moment human consciousness is not sufficiently at a place where we could just appear, no matter how much you might will it to happen. We know that Jessica has sat there in her living room and wished us to come and appear, and we do not do so yet because we know she'd actually be rather terrified and run up and protect her children and wonder what was going on, as much as she might like the idea. So there will be gentle revealings of this. There have been some revealings of this, but essentially at the moment it is to do with your own personal fear, allowing humans to move into that state naturally. If we suddenly came and appeared to you, it would be very jarring for the reality for most of you. And also you must realize that you are on a planet with many people who are still in paradigms that will not yet be able to accept these ideas at all. And until they are lifted out of the fear of that and into a state of acceptance, which won't be long because this higher vibration is catching on quickly, but it would cause more harm than good at this precise moment. And also because the vibrational frequency is so different that we could, if we chose to take physical form, we could get stuck And that has happened in the past. There have been beings from higher frequencies who have managed to take human form and not been able to then shift back. Or we could be very jarring to your vibration. So if we suddenly appeared to a room full of people and there was, say, one person there who was having very deep struggles, very difficult personal circumstances, it would be so jarring to their vibration, it could cause them physical harm to their actual body at the moment.
And are abductions physical or in the astral body? And if astral, why do some people come back marked?
Usually they are in the astral body. They feel like very, very physical experiences. And the markings, now this is an interesting point because this refers to the power that you actually have as humans from your own consciousness. So usually people that come back marked, they may have very little recollection of the experience, but they know that something has happened, even if they know it only at a subconscious level, so such as having had a dream but not being able to remember what that dream was. A lot of the markings are created from the memory of the event. So the astral body goes up, experiences the abduction, and then comes back into the physical body, remembers the abduction, often still in a sleep state before the person wakes up and remembers the experience. And such is your power through your observation that your energy will create physical lacerations, holes, various aspects on the physical body through the memory that your consciousness has. There are sometimes physical cases of abduction, but actually your body is able to be very, very physically influenced by your own consciousness. So there is an understanding that some ET beings will hypnotize people, so that that person will go with them. But essentially this is just a working, or it just happens to some people because you differ in the way that you are able to be conscious of events or not conscious of events. So sometimes it is more that those who have remembered the event after feel that they have been hypnotized to be moved because it has been their astral body that has traveled. So if you, for example, choose to have an astral projection, you're choosing that, but you are in an altered state of consciousness. Now, if someone else had moved you into your astral body, you may feel as though you had been hypnotized, but essentially you have chosen to have, you have allowed on some level to have that experience. And we have talked about the nature of abductions before, that often on soul level they have been agreed to. So when it comes to things like hybridization, and there has been instances of hybridization of different beings or adjustments to the DNA, which are often positive and to help you, and have been agreed to at soul level by those beings, often, and they are often conducted by other counterparts of that person's soul energy. The hybridization does sometimes produce physical results, so children that come through. And that is something that you are very, very able to create through your consciousness. But at the moment, as humans, you are not yet quite able to integrate the ideas that your consciousness is that powerful. So it often works at an unconscious level. So, no, do you need further explanation of this, or is this clear? Because we realise that we could cause more confusion with such a tricky concept.
I think that's clear, yeah, it is. Thank you. Any other questions at the moment? I have a personal question. I'm not sure if you can answer it or not.
Of course.
But who or what is it that wants to be channeled through me at the moment, and what am I meant to do with it?
we feel that this is coming from the entities in the 12th dimension that many of you perceive as being mantis beings. And they have very, very high frequency energy, and they communicate telepathically. They may present themselves to you in a more physical form as something that you recognize, because they are rather alarming to look at if you have not come across them before. And there has been many instances actually where humans have soul guides that are from the mantis, these high telepathic compassionate beings from the 12th dimension. In fact, they rarely take physical form, and we do not fully understand why they occasionally appear as mantis beings and why they are able to then alter, or why they choose to alter that, other than for your own fear. But we do not know exactly why they appear as mantis beings at other times. It seems to be something to do with, as a person is able to integrate different levels of energy and different vibrations, they then like to change their form to show that they are something different to just an earth spirit. But quite often they will present themselves in a more earthly form, possibly as what you may understand to look like a sprite, or sometimes angels. Those different kinds of beings will be presented to you because it is less frightening and less bizarre than a giant bug coming towards you. But they carry very, very high vibration, which is communicated predominantly through sound. So they work with sound, they work with frequency very often. So a lot of the high pitched noises that some of you have, these so-called ascension symptoms, some of those noises will be communication from the mantis beings, and they will be sending those frequencies through to bring upgrades to your physical body and to your telepathic abilities. So they are always worth tuning into, but they do use people that work with sound very often because it is a way of transferring this higher frequency. So you may be aware of the patterns that can be created in either water or different particles when different types of music are played to them. And the mantis beings will use those who are able to bring through a very pure tone, either through instruments or through their own voice, to create these patterns. Because as that sound is produced in the energy layers, if you were able to see the network of energy around you, you would see these geometrical shapes. They would be measurable. But as humans, you're rarely able to see that, but you are able to see it produced within water.
Amazing, thank you. And what should I do with it? Are you saying that it should come through the form of voice and music?
Yes, allow yourself, if you are comfortable with it, allow yourself to bring this music through. We cannot tell you specifically what is your modality to do that, because you will be called towards different things. You may find that you spend a year working by bringing it through in one way, and then find that you're able to bring through a slightly different frequency because, for example, something on your planet might change. The circumstances might change in your immediate environment or in the environment of your collective humanity, and therefore you will not necessarily make the connection unless you stay regularly attuned with this idea, or you remember this that we are saying to you now. But quite often you will then feel called to use a different modality because a different frequency needs to be brought through to bring the relevant changes in the energetic geometry.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to ask about, you mentioned the angel number 888. I'd like to ask about 999, because personally it's the only one I feel resistance to, and I've been seeing that a lot recently, and it's actually causing fear, rather than like with other numbers I always feel like supported and loved. I think past experiences, it usually means something's coming to a closure, and my ego's like, oh god, what is it this time? So I just want to know what is the like higher perspective of that angel number without the fear involved, if that makes sense.
And quite often it is to do with change and transition. So there's your sevens, for example, a transformation. So humans like the sevens because they like the idea of transformation. It sounds nicer, it sounds kinder and gentler. But when you have transition, yes, you get that opposed feeling to it of, well, what is going to transit? How am I going to be affected by this? But the outcome of this is so dependent on your perspective. You are in control of what you observe. So the fact that you observe the number with fear is unfortunately going to bring a lot of that vibration to you, which means that there is probably something about that fear or about the triggering of your fear of change that is something that you need to release and to heal. So you may have had circumstances possibly in your other incarnations, but quite likely within your human one, where a change in circumstance has caused an upsetting result later. Now, that upsetting result will actually have formed who you are now and the healing that you may have been able to do on yourself. So you can see every single sign as an opportunity for healing and for growth, or you can see it as something that you don't want to happen. And the more resistance you put into it, sadly, the more of that feeling and emotion you're likely to experience. It is difficult, we understand, for you to sometimes step into a place of pure trust. But if you're seeing a number repeatedly, it is because there is something that needs to be acknowledged, at least. Whether it is something to be released, and we feel in this case it is, because we can feel the density on your energy just at the fact that you've even asked the question.
Yeah.
That thing may need to be released in this circumstance. But for example, if you're looking at 888, you often want to embrace that. So it does carry very different things, but 888 won't mean the same thing for everybody. None of the numbers do. They are dependent on how you observe and how you interact with them. There does tend to be a general form, and they are good guidance in that respect. But sometimes, for example, if you're seeing 888, it could be because you are in a state of abundance. Or if you're seeing 888, it could be because you need to fix something in order for that reality to start to manifest. Your intuition is infinitely more powerful than you believe it to be quite a lot of the time, but so is your observation. So if you see 888 and think, oh goody, I'm going to get lots of money, then great, you're likely to draw that into your energy. If you see it and think, oh no, what am I not doing? Then you will also be likely to experience at least a reflection of what it is that you're not doing, so that you can heal that, let it go and move on. So this 999, which is carried greatly around the around the left hand side of your body, there's a dark kind of energy to it. It's not an attachment, so don't start panicking. But we know that you can feel a lot of fear from this, but it is something that you've predominantly created because you've put a lot of energy into worrying about it. So we would suggest that this is something that you do need to be able to release on a personal level. And then you will find that the number will either stop showing itself to you and you'll start seeing something different, or your feelings will change. It's likely that you'll stop seeing that number once you have released what it is that you're called to.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Could you tell me about the light language I've been receiving recently in the last few months?
A lot of the time, light language is it can be to change the frequency of your body in order to prepare you to move into higher vibration. Because if you suddenly move from one vibration and jump in great leaps, quite often humans, they're very excited about this. You will want to jump into the 7th dimension because you think it sounds amazing, instant manifestation. But with instant manifestation, for example, also comes, you can magic a gold bar on your hand, or you could also think of a car crash and straight away that's exactly what happens to you. So understand, being able to integrate the different levels of frequency on a slightly more gradual scale than just jumping from one to another, particularly if you're wanting to jump 2 or 3 dimensions of layers of frequency. Doing it gently allows you to, for example, know okay, if I'm going to make a gold bar, I better not be thinking about car crashes. It allows you to start to have more control over the way that that changing vibration works with you. Light language is something that comes through to various people. Sometimes it is consciously chosen and sometimes not, as a way to bring through higher frequency to both yourself and to others, but often in a preparation for a shift into higher consciousness. So light language can be very healing when used on others, because it is bringing in a gentle way a different frequency to the person that is experiencing it, and allowing them to start to gently shift, so it can be used for healing, because healing is essentially changing the frequency of the body, changing the body into a material experience that is one that has not got ill health. So jumping into a dimension where the body is well rather than unwell. And so light language can be healing in that aspect, because it helps the body to make that jump. So in a short time, the body can shift into a higher frequency, but you as humans go, oh wow, it's gone. Now, often the light language comes through because a person is ready to start making that transition and start moving into higher vibration. It's a good sign, essentially, that you are moving into more alignment. Your physical and your spiritual aspects are integrating with one another better.
Thank you. Any more questions? Got one last question from the gentleman online. What is the significance of the Pope's death?
Much of that depends on what you believe it to be. Again, observation creating reality. But we do understand that when things are observed on a collective level, it is going to cause a lot of changes in vibration. There has been a great movement amongst you collectively to conventional religions, those searching for spirituality and searching for meaning, because they can feel the vibrational shift, but they don't know how to integrate it, so they look for guidance, and they often look for guidance externally. It's very natural for humans to do that. So then when there is an energetic shift caused by an event such as that, it can destabilize the collective frequency, because many people have their energy invested in one particular thing, and there are also many of you who are aware that there is symbology behind many of the things that you see on a bigger platform. So on the one hand, you will have those who are connected to Christianity feeling maybe the sadness, or feeling a sense of loss at the death of a pope, or feeling that it is in some way significant, and it is by no chance that the death occurred on that particular day. That was by design. And so they will search for meaning within that thing, and quite often what happens is that that meaning will not be found. They will be looking for, why did that happen on that particular day? Was it significant? Was it to do with the rising of Jesus? And the not knowing can actually set humans into a very low state of vibration. There is also a certain amount of energy that is changed and shifted when certain actions by highly powerful organizations occur, and that's really because they believe that it has significance. So again, they create an energy through their own belief. So we just want to come back to a thing here. We know that humans often believe that there are surges of energy when a life is extinguished intentionally. That is not the case. The surge of energy comes from the belief by those responsible for that action. It comes from their belief. So they create a very, very amplified charge of energy. And this is something that we hope that many of you humans will awaken to. We know that most of you will find those kind of actions abhorrent, but the more of you that understand that the shifts that are caused by such events come from the belief of those involved rather than from the cessation of the human life, the less power that will hold. So it's again understanding how fear interacts with the human experience. When you observe something that causes fear or causes sorrow, then you will often experience the energy that is created by that, and then collectively you feed that energy because you're all trying not to have it happen, and therefore you focus on it and you create more of it. So the death with this Pope and the various rituals that surrounded it at that time, leading up to it, very significant symbols placed in the unconscious minds of humans that there was something possibly nefarious going on, also creates an energy of that. And those that are responsible for some of these circumstances are aware that it is the energy created from the observation of the collective that actually causes the shifts. Not all of them know that. Many people practice nefarious things as humans because they believe that that practice is going to alter their state of being and alter their life and their outcome. So it is not by chance that that death occurred on that time, but it is also not connected to Christ consciousness. It is not connected to your rising human consciousness. It is a way of causing some kind of doubt and a way of attempting to make you believe that there is something there when actually it's smoke and mirrors.
Thank
you. You mentioned the internet. Was it initially narrative information control? Has it backfired and actually connected us all? And,
yes, predominantly it has.
The awakening.
Yeah, this is not just a case of whether the internet didn't work out the way that it was expected to. It is also to do with the change in human consciousness at this time. So the internet would have been created as you perceive it as a point in the past. The internet is created in this now moment because all of your experiences are running simultaneously. So the potential outcome was able to change depending on the energy as to which humans started to interact with it afterwards. But the fact that it has now come into its own in the terms of awakening at this particular point now is something that was, as you might understand, predetermined. It was always going to fall into alignment because that you have all of your collective soul contracts to make this thing so that in the future years it was going to fall into alignment with the time when human consciousness started to rise. Do you understand this? So yes, it has, in that sense, it has backfired from any nefarious ideas of creating it. It is causing much more in terms of awakening than it is from restriction of your growth. But that is because it was designed that it was going to have its maximum impact at a time where you had the maximum potential for reaching higher states of consciousness and awakening.
Thank you. Any more questions? I think that's it. All wrapped up.
We are very grateful for this opportunity to connect with you, and we hope that the insights have not been too complicated for you this evening. We know there have been some slightly confusing or complicated ideas conveyed to you, but we hope that if you are not able to integrate them fully now, just give it a few days and allow them to drop in sometimes through your sleep states or your less conscious states. You are able to further perceive the knowledge that we've brought through to you and the frequencies that that knowledge carries. So we hope that this has been a service for you, and we know that it will help you to lift resonance and continue on your human experience.
Thank you.
Hi everyone.